All right, so after the 24 days of the rigorous exercise of independent and joint research with my peers around the world, I'm trying to bring this complete synthesis of the super story of COVID-19, which is somehow a super story nowadays all over the world. So the picture begins like this, that in December 2019, in a big open seafood market, which is really big, in Wuhan, China, somewhat 198 people suddenly fell sick mysteriously. And the sanitary conditions, of course, of the market are not very good. You can see the cut open animals, the live animals, the dead animals in the bad vessels, which are open hands of butchers and all kind of things. Where definitely, if you have a little bit of fairness, and if you are a meat eater, if you are a seafood lover, then even then you won't love to buy your food from such a place. Okay, and the illness mainly precipitated the symptoms which can be defined as the flu-like symptoms, in which you can find the pulmonary infiltration of fluid in their lungs, which was reflecting in their chest x-rays, and coughing, sneezing, runny nose sometimes, fever, the rising temperature, and most importantly, the lowering white blood cells count and the lowering lymphocytes count, which are a clear-cut indication that something is going on wrong, which is wrong in the body. Okay, so the Chinese doctors and the scientists, first they tried to introduce the antibacterial, the antibiotics. So when the antibiotics didn't work, they took them into suspected virus detection. Okay, now before that, I would like to ask you a question, all of the audience out there. Okay, that if something happens in such a market and such a environmental condition, when the illness can be directly related to bad hygienic and sanitary conditions, like open market and no direct care of hygiene and sanitary. Okay, so what can be the possible cause of the illness? If I present you the four possibilities, number one, it is a genetic disease like cystic fibrosis or something, if you know a bunch of them. Number two, that it's autoimmune disease, okay, when your own system is attacking yourself. Number three, it's virus. And number four, that it's just a bad seafood which somehow got contaminated and poisoned, and that is acting badly into the systems of people, those who consumed it, or just it somehow got introduced, or even if they didn't consume it. Okay, so I strongly believe that most of you will say that, yeah, okay, it's some kind of poison or contamination of the food which got in touch with the bodies of people over there through the consumption of the food, or maybe by just breathing or some other reason. Okay, but what Chinese doctors and researchers did, that they directly took the whole thing into suspected virus. Okay, at no time, listen carefully, it will pay you back. At no time, no Chinese authority took, isolated, purified a virus from the lung fluid, which was taken from 7 of those 198 sick individuals through putting a fiber optic camera type 2, which squirted a bunch of fluid and pulled it back, and they took it, and they factually never isolated any virus so far from that fluid. And when they started testing this fluid, what they found was an RNA, a nucleic acid, okay, a genetic material, to be simple. Now, if you have some basic knowledge of genetics or the microbiology, you might question strongly that, oh, no genetic material can be found in the body freely. Either it should be in within a cell membrane, within a nucleus especially, not only in the cell membrane, which should be either a eukaryotic cell, or if it is a prokaryotic cell, even then it has to be within a cell membrane, and or even if it is on a bacteria or a virus, at the least it has to have a membrane of protein and lipid, the bilipid membrane of protein and fats. Okay, but let me tell you this, that at given times, there are times when the free genetic material is circulating within the intracellular fluid and blood. Okay, anyways, we pause this this structure for a moment, and we proceed further. Okay, now this RNA that was found, the genetic material that was found in the fluid, was tested through an alleged most advanced test, which is known as RT-PCR. Okay, this is the RT-PCR pretty much is the soul, it's the baseline, it's the bottom line of the whole thing that is going on in the form of panic and pandemic in the whole world. Take it in account, please. Okay, it might help you to come close to the right picture, I would say. Not wrong or not true or false, I'll say the right picture. Whatsoever the right is, that's up to you if you are willing to do your own digging into the matter. Okay, now this RT-PCR test, which stands for, like, it sounds mouthful, but it's not a big deal. It's reverse transcript polymerase chain reaction, which was found back in 1984 by a guy called Kary Mullis, a no ordinary name somehow, was a Nobel Prize winner of 1993 and a biochemist in America, and also won the Japan Prize. Okay, so he was the founder, he was the inventor of the test. And Kary Mullis clearly said that the RT-PCR test should not be used to detect an infectious disease, because it does not test for a virus, it tests for a sequence of genetic material, a sequence of RNA. That's what the RT-PCR works in. For DNA as well, when it reverses the transcript of RNA into the DNA, because remember, only the DNA can be amplified, not an RNA. That's why it's important to reverse the RNA. But as long as an RT-PCR test is concerned, a PCR or a qPCR, real-time PCR is concerned, it doesn't primarily test for a virus or a bacteria. It tests for a genetic material sequence. Okay. Now, every medical school system authority, when it comes about the diagnostic tests, they always recommend to have a gold standard for a medical diagnostic test. And as far as between the relation of COVID-19 and RT-PCR is concerned, there is no gold standard. Why? Because there is no original sample of the virus which has taken and then plugged a RNA, a genetic material, which is further then searched into the taken sample from the patient. Okay? So this is very misleading. When you are trying to find something which you don't know what you are going to find, you're going to end up making errors naturally, right? So how can they have the gold standards in the RT-PCR test in respect to the COVID-19? Well, if they have a controlled group of sick people, okay, and at the same time they have a group of healthy people, now what they can do is that they can collect the sample from the lung fluid of all those six sick people, okay, and then purify the virus, keep it, and then do the sequencing of that virus, that genetic material, that virus RNA through the RT-PCR, and then they will be able to have the gold standards, because now they know where it came from exactly, and they have a pure, well-identified sample. But in case of how the RT-PCR is working now, worldwide, there is no original sample. And at the same time, they have to have a control group of healthy people, which when tested should bring the negative test results, so that then they be able to calculate and assess the rate of errors. And you know what? The paper came out, since there is no gold standard, they are not able to calculate it exactly, so they had to estimate the rate of the errors, and it is 80% out of 100. That means 4 out of every 5 patients, okay, will be tested positive. Why? Because there are no gold standards. If you are traveling, if you are exposed to somebody who is tested positive for the coronavirus thing or for the COVID-19 thing, there are 4 chances out of 5 that you also will be tested positive and will be forced to face this quarantine situation. You see? Now, inherently, what RT-PCR is based on, I let you know, it is based on the amplification of that one given sample of RNA, because there are huge number of genetic material in one sample, and there are billions of genetic materials, the cells, the bacteria, the viruses, and there is the human being's own, the patient's own genetic materials is also present. And let's assume that there is really some kind of virus RNA is present, okay? How you're gonna find it? So what RT-PCR does, it amplifies billions of times, okay? How? It takes the sample and it clarify the fluid, which is treated with some chemicals, and remove the fats and protein and get the pure genetic material, and which is then further amplified in an exponential chain. Like if you take one cycle, it will be multiplied into 2, and 2 into 4, 4 into 8, and 16, and 32, and 64, and so forth. Okay, this is that's why it is called a chain reaction. It multiplies. Now, most importantly, it is a job like finding a needle within a haystack, which it really does. If there is a needle, it will be found in that haystack. That's not a big deal. But it would also amplify the haystack, which is another problem with this RT-PCR test. It will not only amplify or enlarge the targeted RNA, it will also amplify the rest of the genetic material, which makes it very tending towards errors and erroneous, okay? Now, last sin part with RT-PCR is that ideally ideally the highest recommended recommended number of cycles of amplification which you should use to go for 1 to 8, 2 to 4, 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8 cycles like that. There are 35 cycles, 25 to 35 cycles in which you should get the accurate result. If there is something, you should get that result. But you know what? The official standard for this COVID-19 test is 45 and even above in many countries, which is already above the upper limit. You see what it can bring to you? It is pushing the limits baselessly. Judge it. You have a right to judge it. This is how COVID-19 is being tested. And there is also a cherry on top of the cake, and that was put in form of historical test back in 1890 by a German guy named Robert Koch, a German bacteriologist. He determined the four-step process to identify a virus-induced disease or an illness into a living organism, okay? And these 4 steps are something like this. Not something, but exactly like this. Number 1, that every living being, animal or human being, which is introduced to that virus should have the same symptoms. Okay, it should have the same symptoms. Number 2, that this virus should be able to be isolated. From this host at any given time. Okay. Number 3, that upon the introduction or injection of this given virus into a new host, that host should get those symptoms of that disease or illness, right? And the 4th, the last, is that if this virus is re-isolated from this host and then again introduced or injected into a second host, they should also get those symptoms of that disease. And none of these four steps has been used with COVID-19, which has been used by the entire mainstream medical science all over the world. And this is not the end of the story. Now you will see. Now you will be asking that what is the RNA they are testing for? What was that RNA? What is the base of this? Even if it is erroneous, what is the base? How it is being tested? I'll be back with that in the second sequel, because you will not be able to grasp all the biological mumbo jumbo if I start teaching you. Okay? You will understand that. Stay tuned. Thank you.